Today, we will be discussing the Phoenix, Arizona music scene. The scene in Phoenix, Arizona is incredibly vast. Anything from rock to rap to EDM to jazz can be found often in Phoenix. Alongside these various genres, a major representation of underground culture can be found as well. Throughout this presentation, an overview will be given of three major artists who began in Phoenix, what the music scene in general is like, and why it is the way it is there. Three significant artists that originated in Phoenix, Arizona are Alice Cooper, Stevie Nicks, and Chester Bennington. All of these artists have incredibly different styles, and all of them grew up, obviously, in the same place. Alice Cooper is known to be a legend of rock. He was born Vincent Furnier and is commonly known as the man to cause the importance of theatrics and rock shows. Though born in Detroit, he was raised in Phoenix and still lives there to this day. With his career beginning in the 1960s, after experimenting with a few bands, he became known as Alice Cooper himself, and is still to this day a world-renowned rock and roll legend. His high school dream was to become a million record seller, and he chased that dream from day one. He has since obviously passed it far beyond what he was expecting. He built his career over the course of decades with the constant drive to reinvent rock music and rock culture as the world knew it. His look, his passion, and his commitment to experimenting with new things drove him to success that, quite clearly, has lasted nearly his entire life. Stevie Nicks was an entirely different story. But, much like Alice Cooper, she began her career in the 60s. As the lead singer of Fleetwood Mac, she has made a name for herself as one of the most notorious female vocalists of all time. She also carried on a very successful solo career. With her share of issues, including a cocaine addiction, affairs within her marriage, and just the average intense vibe of growing up in the age she did, she had to persist and put her craft in the highest regard, all while taking care of herself. This was incredibly difficult given the amount of fame that she had and the amount of pressure she had to maintain her position as such an important vocalist. She has made a massive impact, however, since then on the international music scene. Chester Bennington is the lead singer of Linkin Park. He was a major part of the rock world during the 2000s all the way up until he committed suicide in July of 2017. Bennington struggled with depression throughout most of his life. Music was what kept him going. He wrote to cope with his struggles and to help others going through the same things he was going through, having inspiration from lots of other bands such as Metallica, Nirvana, Deftones, and Stone Temple Pilots, which he at one time was the vocalist of for one album. His music was very similar in style, but with his own technical flair to it. Unfortunately, his life was cut shorter than it was expected, and it was a large tragedy all among the entire world, but he will always be remembered as an incredibly important vocalist and musician. One thing to note is that there are obviously still shows in Phoenix, and there are festivals, but the most notable festival is the M3F Music Festival. It is 100% a nonprofit and has currently been on for 17 years. It is a whole festival too, not just with the music. It includes yoga, children's zones, a marketplace, food, live art, and more. Past and upcoming artists on the lineup include ODESZA, Beck, Local Natives, Bon Iver, Grizz, Kid Cudi, and Portugal the Man. Obviously, these are all very different artists, but they all gather here at the same festival in Phoenix, Arizona. Some other popular venues in Phoenix are the Musical Instrument Museum, which is more of an expo of instruments, but it has been known to have shows either, as well. The venue at the Grove, Boojum Tree, Mesa Amphitheater, Action Pavilion, and the Trunk Space, which is a very notable venue in Phoenix because of the Phoenix underground scene. Phoenix is very much known for its underground scene. The scene really took off around the mid-2000s. When looking at the general rundown of the scene in general, it can be found that underground shows are almost more popular than the large festivals and shows available in the area. One incredibly popular venue in the area is the Trunk Space, which opened in 2004. This venue very commonly hosts underground acts, and while they may not be popular in other areas, they are incredibly popular in Phoenix. So what makes it special? While the music scene in Phoenix is small, it does bring some relatively uncommon aspects to the national music scene. For example, there is a much larger following of small and local acts, so it is much easier for bands and artists to develop a following in that area. There is a lot more appreciation for these artists, whereas in most places, it takes big names to sell. In a way, this benefits the music scene everywhere by providing opportunities for relatively unknown artists to get a good start. But why is the underground scene so prominent? While there is no telling for sure, the underground scene may be so popular because of how unpopular the surrounding area is. While Phoenix itself is far from unpopular, with a population of just over 1.6 million people, the surrounding area is relatively deserted and empty. This means that there is no real outside culture influencing what is going on the inside. It is almost just a collection of various tastes from the unpopular outskirts, as well as the city being somewhat secluded. There is likely no prominent genre because there seems to be no prominent culture affecting it. Thus, it is very full of variety and diversity. Some common genres found in Phoenix, however, aren't that outrageous or odd. These include rock, alternative, jazz, pop, indie, and punk. Some of the most listened to artists in Phoenix include 21 Pilots, Panic at the Disco, J. Cole, and The Weeknd. Obviously, these are very different artists, and they all have very different styles, but they are all popular here in the city of Phoenix. But Phoenix is hidden in reality. Even with extensive searching, it is hard to find much of an impact that Phoenix has on the outside world. Phoenix has something special that can't just be found anywhere, and it seems that they know that, and they keep the area special to itself. The national scene in Phoenix seemed to be kept secret, almost like some sort of musical Atlantis. So why is this culture sustainable? In reality, culture is so prominent, and the culture of Phoenix is represented very well by its diversity of cultures. The music scene will continue to be diverse due to the diversity in cultures and interests. As well as this, the tendency to go to underground venues for shows will likely be passed through generations, as well as the tendency for local shows to be so popular amongst the Phoenix crowd. And while there are obviously a lot of very big names that are popular in Phoenix, Arizona, there are a lot of smaller names that are popular as well. This can be often overlooked, but it is very clear that to the people in Phoenix, even if they aren't listened to quite as much on Spotify or major platforms, they're still definitely notable. So, in conclusion, the Phoenix music scene is definitely different and separate from a lot of the musical world. This may cause the scene to fall behind a bit, but it will most definitely keep it unique and interesting. The underground music world, the large stars who made their way from Phoenix, who started with next to nothing and ended up with a whole lot of history behind them, and the passionate local artists make Phoenix what it is. It will almost definitely remain unique for as long as the city itself is around. I hope this has been informative and telling you more about the Phoenix music scene, and if you ever get the chance to visit it, I hope that you can check out the Trunk Space and perhaps some other venues in the area. I think that you will find something special in Phoenix, Arizona that you won't be able to find just anywhere.